Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping in the Workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere. In the mainstream media, we're often told that everything is unequal to women and that most women are having such a hard time in the world. And most feminists and SJWs will go out of their way to tell you how everything is so unequal and so unfair to women. However, if you take an objective look at most of the statistics, you'll see that everything pretty much benefits most females in America, and that most American women live a lifestyle that most in the world would envy. Now, when you take a look at the statistics for the population of the United States of America and its 300 million people, you'll see that demographically, women make up a majority of the population. 51% of the United States population is female. So the argument that things don't benefit females is it doesn't make any sense. And the reason why it doesn't make any sense is because the population is 51% female, and 51% of American women have the right to vote. So they have political power to vote whatever party they want to vote in to political office to implement policies that benefit them. And this is all part of the whole foundation of gynocentrism, is that females control most of the political power in the United States through their right to vote. But you can't say this to most women who sit there and tell you they are being systematically oppressed. How are you being systematically oppressed by men when you control a majority of the voting bloc? Moreover, you also hear most of these women sitting there complaining, telling you how they suffer in the job market due to inequality. And this is also not true because, in addition to being 51% of the population, a large majority of the jobs in America these days are held by that large majority of women. And in fact, it is easier these days for a woman to get a job than a man. And in most cases, there are numerous programs in the government set aside, such as affirmative action, to make sure that women are equally represented in jobs. And in fact, in some cases, there are jobs that are not filled in many positions because they cannot find an ably qualified woman to do that job. And jobs like construction and many of the sciences, they cannot find an ably or equally qualified female to do these jobs. So most of those jobs remain open because they can't find a qualified woman to do them. So you have most of these females sitting there talking about there's inequality in the workforce. However, when you are a majority of the population in the workforce and you have numerous set-asides, how are things unequal for women when it is, again, easier for a woman to get a job due to all the numerous advantages she has in the workforce due to it being primarily gynocentric these days and the gynocentric policies that allow her to get equal opportunity or even more opportunity than men these days. And then you have many of these females talking about how wages are unequal. Now, there has been a federal law in place since the late 1960s, early 1970s, which says you cannot pay a woman less than a man, and that there has been equal pay on the books for almost 50 years now. So that argument doesn't wash because we have federal laws that state you cannot pay a woman less than a man. But you have most of these women out here talking about there's been a wage gap for over 40 years. And we clearly see with most federal jobs that a lot of women have, there can't be a wage gap because men and women have to be paid the same. Same thing with state jobs and even some corporate jobs. Now, there may be a disparity between pay scales for African American actresses and white actresses. However, that pay scale, when you take a look at the budgets for African American movies as related to white movies, you start to see where there's an inequality there, and that's what leads to the inequality in pay regarding black actresses and white actresses, because most white films featuring a white cast have larger budgets, so the actors are usually paid more, whereas most films featuring black actors have smaller budgets, and that's why the black actors and actresses are usually paid less. So you can see where there's a wage gap there, but that's all related to Hollywood's budgeting system. However, in most other American jobs, there is no real inequality to pay because most companies, it is illegal for you to pay a woman less than a man. So I look at many of the arguments most of these feminists and SJWs have regarding inequality, and I don't see where their things are unequal for women. When I take a look at the bigger picture of it, I see where women are getting tremendous benefits from being in American society, yet they always complain that they are victims of so called oppression. How are you being oppressed when men go out of their way to elevate women in America to a high position in society? Moreover, men go out of their way to provide females with opportunities they would not have in other countries like those in the Middle East. When you compare an American female to a woman in American society, an American woman has been elevated to a tremendous position in society. Unfortunately, she does not appreciate the position she has been elevated to, nor does she appreciate all of the opportunities she has been given to have employment, have a right to vote, or have access to a job where she can get equal wages, nor does she appreciate the things men provide for her on a daily basis. It looks like when you listen to many of these feminists and SJWs, they'll sit there and tell you a woman is being victimized and abused, but when you look at American society, women get tremendous benefits for being a part of American society, and they get tremendous benefits from American society. From many of the men in the so called patriarchy, they say they have numerous issues with. And when you take a look at their issues, they seem, in most cases, completely illogical. When you hear some of these females, they're sitting there talking about things like a rape culture, and you take a look at American statistics and you see that that sex crimes are at an all-time low. So how can there be a rape culture when there are next to no sex crimes? Moreover, we have law enforcement which goes out of its way to punish men for doing basic behaviors that they participate in, such as sitting down. So how is there a culture when men are punished for basic behaviors like looking at a woman or even sitting down or even trying to explain themselves? So I listen to these arguments most of these females have about oppression, and they seem completely illogical when you take a look at the United States of America and the freedoms most women have and the freedoms they have guaranteed under the Constitution, and the fact that they can literally vote any sort of policy in place because they are a majority of the population. They control the economic system by controlling most of the jobs, and they have they are a major part of the American society. So I look at it and I say to myself, how are women being oppressed when they are the majority of people in the population, majority of the voting bloc, majority of control of the job market, and have complete control over the country? When I look at America, it is more gynocentric than any other country in the world, and you have women in America sitting there complaining about being oppressed. How are you oppressed when you are the majority? How are you oppressed when you control the voting bloc? How are you oppressed when you control the job market? How are you oppressed when you are the majority in the job market? When you look at the statistics and listen to the arguments, they just don't add up. I could see if women were being oppressed in 1850, but I don't see how they're oppressed in 2018. In 2018, I see America with a large female majority, and I see an America that is completely gynocentric, and an America where women want to take political control and economic control through movements like Me Too and Time's Up, and they want to lay out a victim platform, but they're not victims. They sit there and talk about people oppressing their rights, but in actuality, it just looks like they just don't want to take responsibility for the country that they're in charge of, and they want to try to blame men for the state of affairs that things are in, instead of taking equal responsibility that they've always protested for, fought for, and voted for. Now, they said they wanted equal rights, but at the end of the day, I'm starting to see that most women don't want equal responsibility for the country where that gives them the equal right to be a part of one of the greatest societies ever created. It's like they sit there and say, I want equality, I want equal rights, but then you have a majority of everything, and it seems like, again, they want equal as related to everything except something called responsibility. And in order to have a society that functions, you not only need equal rights for all American citizens, but all citizens have to take equal responsibility for their part in laying out as a part of America. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.